Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending our 2025 Budget Open House, and good morning to those that are on Zoom as well. Um, we're very happy to be here today to present the 2025 to 2029 financial plan. And I just wanted to start by saying we are recording this meeting. So if anybody's not able to be here at this moment, it will be available to watch on our website shortly. So kicking off, we are very pleased to present the 25 to 29 financial plan to the public today. This plan was a collaborative effort among all departments here in the village, and we are very happy to share it with you today. Starting off just with a bit of an agenda, what we'll talk about first is the budget timeline, where we are in the process. Then we'll kind of look back to the actuals in 2024, how that year rounded out. Then we'll get into kind of the meat of the budget for 2025. So we'll start with a summary, then we'll jump into the capital plan. And then we'll flip into a little bit of information on assessments here in the village, and then kind of what it all boils down to for property taxes. So where are we in the process? We are here. We are, I would say, about 3/4 of the way through the process. We started on January 29th at a committee of the whole meeting where we introduced the budget to council. And then on the February 18th council meeting, council gave the plan second and third reading. And here we are right now, budget open house. We're looking to gain feedback from the public. And the next steps in the process will be tonight, actually, we'll be looking to take the plan to council for third reading. And then finally, adoption will be planned for March 17th. And just generally speaking, it's important that, budget is adopted in a timely manner each year. That helps us as staff move forward on capital projects as soon as possible. Throughout this whole process, we have gathered information. The public has been welcome to give us feedback on the plan. Council's been, of course, very involved in the process the whole way. And any additional feedback that we receive today, and even after this meeting, the public is welcome to provide feedback into the village office directly or by emailing info@harrisonhotsprings.ca. Any additional feedback we receive will be presented to council tonight for further consideration. Okay, so looking back in 2024, just generally some high-level summaries here. Property tax, utility, curbside revenues, they're all pretty much as expected. Pay parking revenue was unfortunately down a little bit. That was very much due to a rainy spring. It picked right up in the summer, but unfortunately we lost some momentum there. Total revenues were $336,000 in 2024. And I just want to highlight that this is it's an important revenue stream for the village. It assists with beach park maintenance, other beautification, other maintenance around the village. Without this revenue, it would unfortunately, or it would otherwise be taxation. There was continued strong interest earnings on investments, so the interest rates at the bank are still favorable. So we've done very well with that in 2024. They've definitely softened a bit in 2025, so that will reduce itself a little bit. And then with the thanks to our dedicated staff here, there's been lots of continued grant revenue in 2024. That included Fire Smart, it included Hot Springs Road drainage, dike improvements, that's just to name a few. And that comes in the form of provincial and federal grants. On the expenses side, everybody knows that inflation is still an issue, and it was, absolutely an issue here in the village too. Just some examples of inflationary pressures we saw were utilities, employee benefits, raw materials, of course, with our capital projects. It is definitely showing signs of softening, and we're looking forward to, that to soften more as time goes on. But I am definitely happy to say that total expenses in 2024 remained under budget, so we will end the year in a surplus position. On the capital projects side, we did carry forward many capital projects into 2025. A lot of them were kicked off in 2024, and a lot of them will be completed in 2025. So that's exciting. I'm sure anybody that goes for a walk or drive around the village sees there's a flurry of activity and construction, definitely on the beach front. So we're excited that a lot of those will be completed here in the next little bit. Some of the projects include a new playground on the beachfront that's completed, lots of water and sewer upgrades, some beach redevelopment, which is underway right now, and yeah, many, many more on the way. Overall, just for 2024, I feel the village is in very sound financial condition and looking forward to moving into 2025. So, summary on 2025, kind of our goals. Our main overreaching goal was to have no reduction in services. In fact, we've increased some services. Continued strong contributions to reserves while keeping property tax increases to a reasonable level. So, we looked at multiple different things in how to achieve this goal. First thing is transparency and public engagement. We feel throughout the process here, council and public has been engaged in the budget process and open to provide feedback through the whole process. When we were creating the budget, we looked at what efficiencies we could gain. So part of the process is we looked, almost every line through the budget. Where can we gain efficiencies? Where can we cut costs? We looked at staffing, we looked at all sorts of different things, including the slow greening of our fleet and facilities. And we added one electric truck last year, so that alone is reducing costs and also being greener to the environment. This is a big one, maximizing external funding. Our community services team is excellent, and they are always on the lookout for grant funding. So we've secured a lot of grant funding and hopefully more to come, but grants do remain a key and primary source of funding here in the village, as large projects would not be possible without grant funding or debt borrowing. So we're thankful that we do have a lot of that on the books. And then finally, planning for a sustainable future. That means a lot of things, but one of the major components of this is creating asset management plan. And what that will do is it will get a good inventory of our current assets, their lifespan and their condition. And then as the years go on, as they're expected to be replaced, we can actually start budgeting for that. So it's more than looking 5 years down the road. It's looking 10, 15, 20 years down the road and trying to budget accordingly for those big capital expenditures. So that is a project that's underway. It's a multi-year project, and we're definitely making some headway into it. Generally speaking, our debt load is very low. The only debt we have at this moment is for flood pump the flood pump, and it's about 318,000. So very happy to say that we're very low on debt. Looking into 2025, some of the pressures we have is the first thing is legislative and audit requirements. So the provincial regulations and audit regulations are increasing year to year. They're becoming much more stringent. The good news is the goal behind these becoming more stringent is to become more transparent to taxpayers, and it basically is to provide more assurance to the public. So that's a good thing, but it does put some budget pressures on in hiring professionals to make sure that we meet all these standards. Workforce retention, having a high quality workforce is becoming more and more challenging for local governments in BC, definitely in the Lower Mainland. There's a lot of competition. And so, the village is in a good position to retain good workforce, but it's important to keep that in mind. Cost pressures, I talked about that earlier. We definitely saw some inflationary pressures, and that will continue into 2025. We're hoping to mitigate those as much as possible, of course. Planning for infrastructure aging. This ties into what I was speaking about a moment ago with asset management plan. really understanding the state of our assets and when they're going to need replacing and how to fund those replacements when the time comes. And new services, there are a couple of new services added for 2025. There's addition of a SenseNet early fire detection system that was installed in 2024, but there is a $50,000 a year monitoring fee for that service that will go into the future. So that's a new cost in 2025, as well as there's the leasing of a new bay to provide medical services to the public. So that's new service for 2025, and we're excited to kick that off here pretty soon. Some general revenue highlights for 2025. We're planning just over $3 million in taxation, about $1.8 million in utilities, $166,000 in curbside collection, and both of these are cost recovery. Business licensing about $29,000, and paid parking hopefully about $350,000. It depends on how the weather goes this year. Hopefully we have a nice warm spring, but that will help us again alleviate other cost pressures. On the administration side, we were able to come to an agreement with CUPE. We have a collective agreement reached for the years 2025 to 2027, so that was very exciting. Professional services, we've budgeted $50,000 for asset management consulting. This is covered by a grant. $46,000 for forest fuel management, and this was for the fuel mitigation for Spirit Trail, and I'm happy to say that that was recently completed. $21,000 for the continued development master plan completion. And on the technology side, just generally about $65,000 for the various programs and software that we use on a daily basis. We have accounting software, obviously. It includes property taxation, assessment, and utilities billing, public consultation software, website support, general IT security. So we are taking a very high stance on protection of information here. We utilize the latest in security for the protection of information. So it's something we obviously continue to do in the future. On the fire department side, we've allocated some additional admin support for them and additional training budgeting. On the capital side for fire departments, this is the second year of a kind of a long-term project to replace the aging turnout gear. Much of their turnout gear is expiring, and $20,000 budgeted for equipment refreshing. So that includes hoses, nozzles, what's called a rapid intervention team equipment, and just generally refreshing of the equipment. And then $50,000, and this is contingent on us receiving a FireSmart grant, and that is to continue outfitting the structure protection unit trailer that we got last year as a result of the BC FireSmart grant. On emergency services, we have a partnership with the District of Kent for an emergency planning agreement that will continue. Looking at the development side, we budget $35,000 just general for municipal engineering, and then on the planning side, $100,000 for general planning, $110,000 for parks master plan completion. Over the last year or two, council gave staff direction to update many of the master plans or create master plans that we didn't have. So this is part of that project. It is underway as we speak, and then various bylaw updates, and that's mostly related to development, but also includes other things, and that's funded by grants as well. On the public works side, in order to keep the equipment fresh, we're budgeting $27,000. That's for a new brine tank dispenser and rental park fountain replacement. $140,000 we've budgeted for, and that's covered by a grant. That's for drainage improvements along Esplanade and the beachfront. There's some drainage issues there, so we're hoping to tackle those. We budgeted $85,000 for a new electric truck for public works. We've been fortunate enough, and we appreciate a grant called the Local Government Climate Action Plan that we've received from the province. This has assisted us in buying, this would be the second electric truck that it will assist us in buying, and obviously it greens our fleet and replaces aging infrastructure. It's just been a great program. $22,000 budgeted for boat launch dock steel plating replacement, that's actually underway, and $50,000 for washroom renovations. That's beachfront, boat launch, various washrooms. On the community services side, it's an exciting and busy time for this very small department of now two. We're happy to announce that there's a new communications and community engagement coordinator position created, and we have an excellent individual who has agreed to join us in that position. This position will do everything outward facing, basically, for engagement of community, but this position will also assist with searching of grants and applying for grants, grant reporting, all that sort of thing. So we're really, really happy to have this. The FireSmart initiatives continue, and this will be the second year of the FireSmart grant, which we're not sure yet that we have, but we're very hopeful. If we get it, there will be FireSmart home assessments continued, additional FireSmart training for the fire department, and additional equipment for the fire department as well. In addition to that, there's increased focus on community and accessibility programming, including chair yoga, looking at some accessible facilities through grant funding. And again, this Christy and her team is always seeking out new grant opportunities. Also, there was a refresh of getintoitharrison.ca. So if anybody has not yet gone to this website, I really encourage them. It's a great resource for updates on capital projects, updates on what's happening in the village. It's very graphical, lots of pictures. So it's literally just getintoharrison.ca. Now for the less fun stuff, but still very important, look at some capital projects. So we have $5.6 million in grant funding budgeted to begin the Dike and wastewater treatment plant access road improvements. We do have more grant funding in place in addition to that, but this is in consulting stages as we speak, and as we get a better idea of the project, we'll get a better budgetary idea as time goes on. Just short of $2 million for the Hot Springs Road drainage improvements. This is funded by grant and drainage GCCs. The Miami Creek North Bridge improvement, as I'm sure anybody's seen, it's lots of work going on there right now. It's for the abutment upgrade as well as utility relocation. This is funded by a Growing Communities grant through the province. And Spring Park upgrades will be completed this year. That's for washroom and covered shelter and water fountain. So that's in the final phase of this project. Bus shelters, in continuing our goal to put more bus shelters throughout the village. We're budgeting for 3 this year, and this is a partnership with BC Transit, as well as also covered by gas tax, which is a provincial and federal grant. We're looking at some refresh of the exterior of the village office and some electrical upgrades, which is funded by a grant. What these electrical upgrades will do is assist us to hook up a portable generator in the event of a power loss. So we have base communications still at the village, and the eventual plan, as grant funds permit, will be to purchase a permanent generator for that facility. And various facilities, we've got grant funding for accessibility upgrades. So Christy's looking into that right now, but it could be accessibility for electric doors, all sorts of different things. So that's going to be underway. Looking at the Resort Municipality Initiative, so it's also known as RMI funding. This is a provincial tourism-based funding stream, and basically it supports small tourism-based communities in building infrastructure and delivering programming that will strengthen and diversify the tourism economy. So that's the goal. We are just at the end of a what's called a resort development strategy. It was a 3-year program, and the end of 2024 was the final year for that. So for 2025, we're carrying forward some projects. We're completing the projects that were identified in that strategy. And the creation of a new resort development strategy has begun with a new committee being formed. And we're very happy to announce that this program has been renewed for another 3 years with the province. So we're excited to see what we can do with some funding over the next 3 years. For 2025, we've got the completion of the lagoon development, the lagoon redevelopment project, completion of the boat launch building expansion, and then continued assistance with tourism Harrison events. So for example, that would be Canada Day, Lights on the Lake, Sasquatch Days, Festival of the Arts. RMI funding directly contributes and assists with those events, as well as general administration and small infrastructure improvement projects. So it's, again, a very important funding stream for the village, and we're very, very happy that it's going to continue. Looking into our utilities, wastewater and water, it's important to note that the wastewater utility is self-sustaining. It's operated on a cost recovery basis, so it's not tax supported. There are some municipalities where taxation does support their utilities. We fortunately do not do that. The first item here is lift station 1 replacement. So this is very, very close to being complete. It's an excellent piece of infrastructure. It's going to work well for many, many years. So we're just going to continue that in 2025 and also begin planning for lift station 4, 5, and 6 upgrades. That's in the planning stage right now. In continuing on the updates to master plans, the wastewater and storm master plan update is underway. This is a carry forward project. And again, this will lead into a full understanding of where our infrastructure is at and how it's going to age and when it's going to need to be replaced. So this will tie right into our asset management plan that we're working on as well. We're also looking at phase 2 of a SCADA system. So what is the SCADA system? I had to ask and I had to Google it as well, but it's basically a remote monitoring and control system that really monitors every aspect of our wastewater utility, our wastewater plant, and it allows constant information on the status of many, many different aspects of the plant, and it allows our utility supervisor or a qualified operator to adjust aspects of it remotely. So it's a great system to get into place. This is phase 2. We're looking at $60,000 for Macom's sewer line repair and a new blower at the wastewater treatment plant. And this is for the bioreactor. Now switching over to the water utility. Again, the water utility is as well self-sustaining, not tax funded. It's operated on a cost recovery basis. We're looking at updating the water master plan as well with the whole suite of master plans, so that's underway. There's a replacement gen set that is in final stages. That's for the beach water intake, and that is going to be completed soon. And then again, on the water side, we're doing phase 2 of the SCADA system, which will allow, again, more remote monitoring of that system as well. Looking at our balances, now these are subject to change slightly because we're still working on our year-end processes, but they won't change too much. So as of 2025, we've got about $9 million sitting in reserves, various reserves, about $5.4 million in DCCs, and what that is a development cost charge. These are funds received from developers when upon developing new properties, new infrastructure. This is basically for the expansion of infrastructure into the future. And then we've got about $6.3 million of accumulated surplus, and that's basically surplus that is accumulated since the village was incorporated, and about $5 million of that is general surplus, and about $1.3 million of that is for water and wastewater surplus. And that's available if needed to assist with capital projects or any other costs. This is quite a bit of information, but this is showing what we're budgeting to contribute to our reserves for 2025. So general infrastructure reserve, 400,000, all the way down to boat launch reserve. So about $689,000 budgeted contribution to reserves, and that's for the general fund. And then an additional 532,000 budgeted reserve contributions for wastewater and water utilities. If all the projects that we've got budgeted for complete in 2025, which is unlikely, but we would be bringing out about $1.4 million in reserves and transferring out about $1.7 million from development cost charges. Taking a look at assessments now, this information is subject to change slightly. BC Assessment does one final release here coming shortly. It usually doesn't change too much, but the total assessed value of all properties is $1.16 billion here in the village. Non-market change growth is 12.3 million. And what non-market change means is new properties or increased value to certain properties that wasn't there before. So this is basically new taxation to the village. And this is an important number because what this does is ease the tax burden on current residents and current businesses here in the village. So sustainable growth is important, but growth is very important for sure to keep taxes reasonable. Overall increase to assessments 2024 versus 2025 was $60 million. And so that was about 5% on average increase. And then the class percentage increase gets a little bit more complex, but basically what it's saying in 2025, 3.98% average increase to residential properties was seen, about 6.23% average increase to business, and about 7.1 average increase to recreational. So these are getting much closer. As you'll notice in previous years, there was quite a swing to where residential properties actually lost value, but businesses and recreationals increased extremely high. And so it's nice to see this softening a little bit as time goes on. For property taxes, there are basically two components to property taxes. One is the municipal portion, and this is basically the only portion that we can control as a municipality. And then we have our requisitions and taxes from other bodies. This is not controllable. Of course, these are very important services that include such as the regional district hospital, municipal finance authority, BC assessment, police tax, and school tax. So again, very important programs, but we basically get requisitions from these bodies and collect it from taxpayers, remit the whole thing to these bodies. So only about 50% of your of the tax bill here in the village stays in the village. So just a little bit more information on that. Property tax ranking. This is just basically shows where the village is in comparison to other municipalities here in the province. So out of 162 official registered municipalities, on the residential side, the village of Harrison is 31 lowest. On the business side, it's 38 lowest, and recreation side, it's 131 lowest. So I think this does visually show that current council and previous councils has done an excellent job of balancing and keeping taxes here in the village very reasonable. Property tax ratios, it's a little more technical, but what this basically means is a residential is basically the baseline, so that's 1. And then a tax rate multiplier is how many times higher a business tax rate will be and a recreational tax rate will be. So if you really picture it, for every dollar of residential tax, a business last year would pay $3.03 and recreation would be $3.66. So you can see that it swung a little bit over the years, and definitely in 22, 23, there was a swing, and this was mostly related to the major swing in assessments partially caused by COVID-19, partially caused by the economy. And what staff and council is wishing to do is to, stabilize these ratios so it becomes a more plannable type of scenario for businesses and residents going into the future. So that leads us into the property tax ratios for 2024. I'm sorry, for 2025. At the Committee of the Whole meeting on January 29th, there was multiple scenarios considered, and council, with the recommendation of staff, chose to keep the ratios the same as in 2024. And basically what that does is, on an average residential property, it equates to about a 5.2% tax increase, which is about $100 a year. And business, it's about 7%, and recreational is about 8% increase. So that keeps the ratios where they were. And again, this is for the municipal portion only, which is the only portion of the taxes that we have control over. So that is the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions that the public has, both in person and on Zoom. And so feel free to, we'll do Zoom first. If anybody on Zoom has a question, just use the raise your hand button. No questions at this time, so we welcome any questions or feedback from the public at this time.
I love cooperation, John. Thanks. Alison Douglas. I live in Cascade. I've lived here 7 years, and this is my first budget meeting. So I am impressed with the work that's been put together here. And I really appreciate everything you guys do. It's a tough job, so I appreciate it. Can I ask a couple of questions? When you look at the boat launch, can you add kayak and canoe into that plan, or is that something I can do this evening at the open house? I just started kayaking, and it would be nice to have easy access.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Douglas. That is, I do believe there's been some discussion at the RDS committee level, and we're hearing from some residents that there has been, there's a desire for canoe and kayak infrastructure to be installed. So awesome. That we're hearing people, and it's certainly, we're looking at opportunities to be able to implement that.
Okay, and we have put it forward at Age Friendly as well. Thanks. Total grant, I noticed you have a lot of grants. Do you have a total of all the grants that we get in this community?
Yes, thank you for your question.
Just ballpark.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say, over $10 million.
Wow.
And that includes mostly capital grants, but also some operating and programming grants.
Awesome. So have you guys always applied for grants, or is this increased lately? Because I know Christy's very involved in that, and I appreciate it.
Yes, the team has always definitely applied for grants, but we have an especially motivated community service manager at this moment, and she's got a great team, and they are always looking for grant opportunities that in the past I think were missed.
Okay. My last question, the water bills in my condo are probably the same as the homes. Is there any reason why that is? I heard a story that it was because a lot of the residents don't live here, and why should they go to bat for them that don't live here? Is there a reason why the water bills in the condos are as high as the homes?
Yes, thank you for your question. It's really bigger picture. So it's not so much the cost of water, but it's the the infrastructure behind it. So the infrastructure has got to be in place. There's got to be fire hydrants for fire protection.
Yeah.
And it really protects everybody in the village. So that's the thought process behind that.
Thank you for the answer. And I had one last question and I forgot what it was. Anyway, thank you.
Good morning. John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. Yes, Scott, thank you for that presentation. What I didn't see in here was a lot of discussion about the 1.85 million gift that we are giving to Kent for their swimming pool. Now, I've tried to follow this, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it at the moment, the village is going to go to the Municipal Finance Authority, probably, borrow $1.85 million and give that money to Kent as a gift. The 1.85 million is going to be a loan to the village that's going to be paid off over 20 years. It's on a 20-year amortization. And every year for 20 years, we will be paying down. It can't be a mortgage because we're not getting anything, any tangible asset for that payment. We're just giving a gift. We're like Canada giving money to Cameroon or something. So I have a couple of questions about it. Where are we going to borrow the 1.85 million? Is the interest rate on that going to be fixed or floating? And what are the annual payments? And how is that reflected in the 2025 budget? Because from the discussions I witnessed here in the hall, Kent, in their presentation, indicated there was some urgency because they're way short of their capital costs and they need the money right now. So I'm assuming we're going to borrow this money and give it to Kent in 2025. So can you elaborate on some of that for me, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I can assure you that much of the information you said is inaccurate. So I'd be happy to give you some more information on the reality. The village would not be going to the Municipal Finance Authority and not be borrowing these funds. Where we are at right now is that council has given staff direction to begin the process of working with the District of Kent to figure out how this is all going to work. There's lots and lots of steps we have to go through, lots of regulatory things we have to look at. Ultimately, this is absolutely not a 2025 budget item. If it becomes a budget item, it would be 2026, possibly 2027. But at this point, it will not be a debt borne by the village. And this is in its infancy, the stages of what we're doing. We're just looking at everything right now. So nothing's been set in stone.
Well, I'm sorry, but I was here and I witnessed the exchange and the reports, and I distinctly recall that the village promised to give Kent $1.85 million. I'm just asking how and when that is going to happen, because it'll have an effect on all of us in the village, and any business in town is going to pay 3 times as much in taxes for that as the residents, and the Harrison Hotel in particular could be hit with a massive tax bill increase if we have to pay for it through general taxation. So are you telling me that you have made no commitment, the village has made no commitment to Kent as yet?
Thank you. Again, at this time, council has given staff direction to begin the process of working with the District of Kent to formulate an agreement and plan for this. There's been no formal commitments been made to this date.
Well, you need to tell Kent because they think that they've got a promise. So I just don't understand what's going on with that. Anyway, I'll leave it there for the moment and let somebody else ask a question if they have one.
Hi, Alison Douglas. If Harrison gives the 1.8 million to Kent for the pool, Do you know what that would cost each resident? Because I know a lot of people go to Hope, and if we built our own, if we built our own pool, it would cost us way more than that. And I know the seniors, there's a lot of seniors drive to Hope all the time. This is much closer. And I do believe we're working with transit to get a bus route there directly too, so thank you.
Ms. Douglas, I think I can answer that, or perhaps point you in the right direction. Are you referring to user fees, or what is being asked of village?
If the village gives Kent money, what does that equate to per resident on our taxes, if that was the worst scenario?
Okay. What I would encourage you to do to just verify my numbers is that there was a presentation that was done to council, and they had a scenario where it was looking at, based on population. We felt that that was probably the most stable and easily recoverable every 5 years. I believe it was, for the capital side, it was $70 per resident, and then on the operational side, I believe it was $100 per resident.
Okay. I'm in favor of it because
Perhaps I've got
I
it the wrong way.
Yeah.
It might be the other way. So that's why I say you should watch a presentation that was given to council, and that'll actually give you exactly, it'll give some timelines on what the expectations were and that kind of thing. So.
Okay, because I drive for community services. I deal with a lot of seniors. They don't want to drive to Hope anymore. Agassiz is much closer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Douglas. And there's no question that having a regional recreational center accessible by Harrison residents is definitely a big asset for the community.
Yeah, and I also heard if we didn't give money, you can confirm this rumor, that Harrison would not be able to register as the Agassiz residents would, and if we kick in money, it's open to all of us fairly. Is that correct?
Yeah, again, that's in the presentation. Yes, that is very true. It does give Harrison residents priority level, just as Kent residents.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, just following up on the previous question, I recall when the library opened up in Agassiz, and Harrison was not yet a member of the Fraser Valley Regional Library System. It meant that Harrison people going to the library in Agassiz weren't really entitled to go in there and use the library and to borrow books. So what we did was, we found out that the library system was available to people who didn't live in a library system geographic area, and all they had to do was to buy a small membership. I forget, it was a nominal amount, $50 or something. So what the village in that case did was they said to everybody in Harrison, if you wish to use the library in Agassiz, of which Harrison was not a part, just come to the village office, fill in a simple form, apply, and we will buy the membership for you. And we did that for many years, and it worked very well because the limited number of people from Harrison who used the library at that time was easily absorbed into the village budget. So I know that Kent has said that if we don't pay a couple of $1 million into the capital cost of this new pool, that Harrison Hot Springs residents will have second-class access to the pool. And what I'd like to suggest is that instead of us paying them $2 million as a gift, that whatever user fee a Harrison resident is required to pay to get full access to the pool could be reimbursed to them through the village office. And I think that would be more effective because in my estimation, and I'm no expert on running public pools, in my estimation, there would really not be a very large number of people from Harrison who would be regular users of that pool, and it would be a better way for us to do it because we would know exactly how many of our people were using the pool, and uh, what our costs were going to be on an annual basis. I'm also confused by the discussion that said that this is somehow going to be handled through financial transfers through the regional district, because it's supposed to be a regional facility. And we do have regional pools run by the regional district, one of them in Hope. But what you're talking about in the Agassiz pool doesn't sound anything like that. So I'd like some clarification as to what role the regional district is going to play in this little financial transfer thing where the money's possibly going from us to the regional district and then to Kent? Or is it really a regional pool being run by the regional district? The language of calling it a regional facility is confusing because that generally means it's being run by the regional district. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Your comments are noted. The details behind this are again in their infancy. Nothing's been settled. Nothing's been hashed out yet. If you're looking for maybe more information, I would also encourage you to contact the District of Kent, or stay tuned as details are fleshed out. We'll be transparent to the public through the whole process, and more to come.
I'd just like to say I'm not opposed to us borrowing money for necessary facilities. When the 12 lots beside the village office came up for sale, we actually went to MFA and we borrowed that money to secure that land in order to have a place to build a new community hall to replace this memorial hall. So I'm all in favor of doing that. But that was us buying land here in our own community, which I think is a completely different thing from borrowing money to give it away to somebody else. And I recall somewhere in the back of my mind that there's a provincial statute that says you're not allowed to give donations to other municipalities, that you have to spend your money in your own community if you're going to be taxing the people. And I haven't researched that, but this would seem to be one of those cases where there may be a prohibition on us borrowing money to give it away outside of the village. And I wonder if there's been any research done on that particular aspect.
Yes, so I'll offer one final comment on it is, again, this is everything we're going to be looking at. We'll be looking at all the legalities and the regulatory things involved in this process. It's not feasible for the village to build a pool here. We don't have the room. We cannot afford it. So it's important, I think, that we have this partnership, but agreed that we will be looking at all of the legalities and regulatory requirements through this process.
Well, while you're looking at the possibilities, might I suggest that if you wanted to spend $2 million on a pool, you could use that and some of the reserves that you have and make an offer to the Harrison Hotel and buy their pool, the public pool, at the end of this block. We were actually offered that pool by the hotel some years ago. Mr. Wass came to us and said, would you like to buy the public pool? I'll sell you the land and the building and give you a share of the water license, and you can run the public pool. And I'm just wondering if we're talking about providing a public swimming pool at municipal expense, why the village doesn't explore that as a possibility, because that would make so much more sense in promoting the village as a tourist destination if we could take that pool, buy it, fix it up, and make it what it should be. It would be a great benefit to the residents and to the business community, way more than us spending $2 million on a pool in Kent District. And I wonder if that has been considered, or can that be considered in the context of you spending money on the pool in Agassiz as an alternative?
So your feedback and comments are noted. Today we're talking about the 2025 budget. None of what we're talking about right now has any impact on the 2025 budget. But again, your feedback and comments are noted.
Okay, I appreciate Allison's advocacy for getting some kind of a launch facility at the boat launch for canoes and kayaks. And I think the basic problem there is you just need to change your operational procedures at the boat launch, because at the moment, if somebody shows up there with a canoe or a kayak, they're not given a warm welcome or any accommodation. And it would be really easy just to say that somebody with a canoe or kayak on the roof of their car that wants to go down, unload it, and take the car away would be allowed to do so. And at the moment, they're banned from doing that. So I can see where it would be really easy to put a small dock in on the east side of the ramp and to allow people to go down there and take their canoe or kayak off the roof rack and launch it. As an alternative to that, I would suggest that the east end of Rendell Park, which seems to be the most popular place for canoes and kayakers to launch, could use a little bit of an upgrade to allow people to unload their cars at that point and go to the lake. It's one of those little segments of the tourism population and the resident population that has been a bit neglected, and they just need a better place to launch. When we're talking about the boat launch, I don't see anything in the revenue figures for 2025 for boat launch revenue, and I wondered how much you're expecting to receive from the boat launch in revenue for 2025, and what was the revenue that we received from the boat launch in 2024?
Yes, thank you. Prior to the year 2025, the boat launch was operated through the Fraser Valley Regional District. All revenues and expenses ran through them, and then they paid us the agreed on proceeds, basically. For 2025, we're operating that directly through an independent contractor, and we're budgeting $100,000 in revenues, and we'll see. That's fairly consistent with what the Fraser Valley Regional District saw for revenues over the last 5 years. So hopefully we'll do more than that.
Well, for clarification then, how much net revenue do you expect to earn from the boat launch ramp? 100,000 being, I assume, the gross revenue. So what net will you expect after you've paid the contractor?
We're budgeting for $25,000 net revenue from the boat launch.
Well, that's an improvement. How much was it from the regional district last year? 14? 14,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Gary Webster. I was at the presentation for the pool, and what I remember seeing was there was a $100 a year charge to the residents, taxation towards the pool, and then there was an estimated $70 a year for maintenance. I can tell you the maintenance is going to be much more than $70 a year. I work around pools. I know they're just a money pit. They don't make money, they cost money. If we are paying this $1.8 million into this pool for treatment of getting, when it goes online and people can sign up, it seems like a lot of money is going towards us just being allowed to do that. Give, just, it's like equal treatment. I mean, it seems like a lot of money just for that. There should be a little bit more into it, a little bit more of a partnership in some other way. Like I think it was mentioned that maybe all the programs we could be involved in and have equal treatment, like the soccer, baseball, things like that. I think it'd be really important if we really push towards that. That's just more of a comment than a question. Sorry about that. But
No.
Great job. Everything looks good. Love it.
Great, thank you for your comment, appreciate it. Do we have any other questions on Zoom? Nobody on Zoom. So any more questions from the public? So with that, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you again for attending, and really appreciate the feedback. We will bring this to council again tonight to request third reading, and have a great day, everybody. Thank you for joining.